Hi all, welcome to CodAffection. This is a React.js beginners tutorial. With this video, we will get started with React.js development through learning the basics and building a to-do app. Before getting into the topic, I would like to ask you a favor. If you find this video helpful, please thumbs up the video, and for more awesome videos like this, please be subscribed to this channel CodAffection. So without further ado, let's get started with the topic. So let's get started with creating React app inside this project folder. First of all, we have to open command prompt from the same folder directory. So you can use the shortcut, just type cmd here, then hit enter, so that the command prompt will be opened from the same folder directory. So basically, in order to work with React applications, you must install Node.js inside your system. There are two methods to create a React application. So here is the first method, npm init. This will create a Node.js application inside the folder, and then you have to install and configure required React modules from npm. So it will take a lot of command execution. So I will go for the second method, which is using the module create React app. Basically, this is an npm package. So you have to install this package using this command here, npm i4 install. Then I have already installed this package. So after installation, you can use this module for creating React applications. Basically, it will install and configure required packages for the new React application. So you can use the module like this, create React app, the name of the app. Inside this video, we are going to make a to-do app inside React.js. So I will name it as to-do app. Hit enter. It will take some time to install the required packages, so please be patient. Finally, we have completed with creating React app. As a result of that, you can see the new folder to-do app here. So let's navigate inside the folder to-do app. Now for this React app development, I will be using Visual Studio Code Editor. In order to open VS Code from the same folder directory here, we can use this command code space then period. Hit enter. So here we have the brand new React app. Considering this is a React.js beginners tutorial, we will explain the basic concepts of React.js and every concept that comes in the way of creating this to-do app. So first of all, here we have the project. As you know, all of the installed npm packages are stored inside this folder node modules. And inside this public folder, we will have the static files like icon, HTML file, image file, JSON, etc. Along with that, you can see the index.html. So this is the root HTML file for the React.js application, and rest of the images are referred inside this HTML here. Now let's check the src folder here. Inside that, we have the root JavaScript file index.js, which is called inside this index.html file here. Rest of the files and components will be explained once we start the server, so that we can see how this fresh React.js application looks like. For that, we have to open terminal from here, and then you just need to execute this npm start. So this is how the app looks like, and this HTML is responsible for the default view of the application here. Inside this, you can see this div with id root, and inside this index.js file here, it replaced that root div with the app component. Inside a React.js application, components are the main blocks. So you can see the app component inside this app.js file here. Here you can see that the div with id root is replaced with the app component. So here we have the app component. Inside this JavaScript file, you can see the JavaScript syntax. Along with that, you can see the HTML code as well. So this is called JSX syntax. So it is a mixture of JavaScript and HTML. So this div here, so the div root will be replaced with the HTML given inside this return statement. So this is the brief explanation on how this page is displayed here. So let's look how to update this component as per our requirement for the to-do app. As always, first of all, we will add Bootstrap into the app here. So go to the official website getbootstrap.com, then click on get started, then copy this CSS reference and we can paste that inside this index.html just above this head end tag. Similarly, we have to copy paste the corresponding JavaScript reference. So let me copy all of these 3 script reference and let's paste that just above this body end tag. So this is the easiest way to add Bootstrap into a React.js application. Now, like we have discussed, this root div is replaced with the HTML that is returned from this app component here. Now I want to enclose this root div with the Bootstrap container. So I will do this. First of all, we will have a div with class container. Inside that, we have to use the grid system from Bootstrap. So we will have this div with class row. Inside that, we have to use 6 columns from Bootstrap. So call MD6 and we have to have an offset of the range 3 columns. Along with that, I have to add a top margin, so we can include this class margin top of the range 5. Now inside this div we can place this root div. So here is the VS Code shortcut. Select the line, then hold Alt, then upward arrow. Now let me save this and back to the app. So that's it. Here we have used Bootstrap grid system. First of all, inside this application, I want to show the header for the app. For that, I will copy paste the Jumbotron structure from Bootstrap. So let's search for Jumbotron. Then I will just copy this code, second Jumbotron code from here. We just need to replace this returned HTML with the copied HTML. So let me save this and back to the app. So this is the same Jumbotron which is copied from the documentation here. Without making further modifications, let's inspect this application here. Inside the console, you can see few warnings. Invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? So this warning is related to the JSX syntax. Since we are using JSX syntax here, instead of class, we have to provide class name. For that, I will use multiple cursor feature from VS Code. You just need to hold Alt, then place the cursor just end of all of the class here and let's type class name. That's it. Now if you check this index.html, we have used the normal CSS class, but in case of the JSX syntax here we have to use class name instead of class. Back to the app. Now let's inspect. So that warning is gone. Logo is defined but never used. So that is because of the replacement of default HTML. So let's remove this, save. Let's check that again. So no error, no warning inside the console. Now let's change the title. To-dos app. I want to change this class to display2. Then we can remove this extra paragraph here. In order to reduce the extra vertical padding here, we can add one more class, padding y for vertical of the range 2. That's it. We want to show a form to add to-do task. For that, we can add a form element just beneath the div here. Form. Let's apply a bottom margin. So class name is equal to margin M bottom of the range 2. Inside this form element, we just need an input control of the type text. Now you can see an error. JSX expression must have one parent element. Here we have the Jumbotron div and here we have the form. We have to enclose these elements inside a parent div. So let's do that here. Div. Now let's enclose these 2 elements with the div. So that's it. Let me save this. Back to the app. So you can see the newly added text box. Now let's add the Bootstrap class. Class name is equal to form control. We have to mention the purpose of this control inside the placeholder here. Please enter your task. In order to avoid autocomplete from previous posted data, we can set this property autocomplete as off. So this is how the app looks like. Now we have to add a submit button for the form. For that, I will use this style for input group from Bootstrap. So let's search for input group. Just trying to show the input control and submit button in a single line like this here. So first of all, we need a div with class input group. Now let's enclose this with the div. Now we have to add one more div for the submit button. So div with class name input group append. Now inside the div here, we can add the submit button. So button of the type submit. Now let's add corresponding Bootstrap classes, btn, then btn outline success. Inside the button, we just have to show this text add. Save this, back to the application, boom. So here we have the text box to enter the to-do task, and here we have the corresponding submit button. Now let's look how to submit a form in React.js application. As always, for form submission, we have to name all of the input controls inside the form. So inside the form, we only have a single text box. We have to name that here, name to-do task. Now let's add the submit event. On submit is the event, and here we have to call another function which handle this form submission. In order to do that, we have to define another function. So basically this is a component. There are two types of component, functional component and class-based components. When the component logic is simple, you can go for functional component. As the components become more big or complex, you can switch that to class-based component. So in this case, I'm going for class-based component. Whether it is a class-based component or functional component, no difference. It is better to use class-based component when the component become more complex. So instead of the function, we have to use a class here, and we have to extend this class using component from React library. So let's import that here, component. Now let's specify that here. So here we have the class-based component. Inside a component, we just can't have a return statement. Either it is to be a function or a property. So we have to return this statement inside render function. Okay, so here we have the render function. Now let's define the function to handle this form submission. So here is the function handle submit. In order to define this function, I'm going for arrow functions. So this is how we can do this. Inside these brackets, we can provide the parameters. For any function related to event, we can have this default parameter event. Then after this arrow, inside this curly brace, we can define the function. Okay, now let's mention this class here. Here, we just need to push the value from this text box into the list where we maintain the to-do task. So first of all, I will define a variable task description is equal to event. Here we have to refer this input control. For that, we can do this event.target, which is the form, dot elements will return all of the input controls inside the form. Inside the form, we have a control with the name to-do task, so we can mention that here, and from that we have to retrieve the value. First of all, we will check whether we have a value inside the text box, so we can do this. We will check the length. It should be greater than 0. Inside this if clause, we have to push the task into the corresponding list. We don't have any such to-do task list. In order to store such values inside React.js components, we have state object. In order to set the value, we just need to set that here state is equal to, it is an object. Inside that I will add this array to-do list. It would be an empty array. Here we have another problem. We have to provide the keyword this dot handle submit. Inside this if clause we just have to push the value task description into the array here. Normally we will just call the push function from this to do and we will insert the value, but it won't work with state objects because it is immutable. So we have to call inbuilt function set state. So we will do this dot set state function can be called, and here we have to pass the state object with updated value to do list. So this is the easiest method to add an element to state array. First of all, we will use the destructive syntax from JavaScript, so to do list. So basically with this operator it will make these elements inside this array as a part of the new array here. Along with that we have to add the new value task description. After the form submission we have to reset the form to its initial state. For that, let me copy this. Reset function can be called. Sorry, we have to do this reset operation inside this if clause. Let me save this. Sorry, instead of equal to symbol we have to use colon. Also we have another problem. Instead of to-do list we have to use the keyword this. Now inside the same function we have to do one more thing, which is to prevent the default behavior of an HTML form. You can see that here. Suppose if I enter the task here, then submit here, as per the function we might have inserted that task into the list. Also we have reset the form. During this form submission this page is reloaded, and along with that the value from the input control is passed through this URL query string here. In order to prevent that default behavior we can do this event dot prevent default. Before that here we have a typo with length, so let me correct that. And also we made another mistake. We can't refer this to do like this. This is inside the state, so we have to mention that like this dot state dot to do list. Back to the app, reload the page. Let me add one more task. That's it. After reloading the page, the React.js state will be reset to its initial state. If you want to maintain those values we can use local storage, but we are not going to use local storage in this tutorial. We are just learning the basics of React.js with to-do app. After adding the prevent default function inside the form submit event, we can submit as much as to-do tasks without reloading the page, and thereby we can maintain the state value. Now let's look how we can show those values from state array to-do list inside this application just beneath this form here. I forgot to explain this syntax here, JSS syntax. Here we have the HTML tags. Inside that, if you want to call any of the JavaScript function, we have to enclose that inside the curly brace like this here. Now let's look how to display values from this to-do list after the form here. For that, we can add an unordered list here with class name list group from Bootstrap. Inside this we have to show li elements as much as elements we have inside the array here. For that we can use the JavaScript code, so we can use this curly brace. Then we just need to call the map function of array in JavaScript. So we can do this dot state dot to-do list dot map function can be called. Inside that we can define another function with two parameters, item and the index. And here is the function. Inside the function we just need to return an li element. So we can do this li. Inside this curly brace we are writing JavaScript code, and inside the JavaScript code you can just simply return HTML elements like this. Now let's add the Bootstrap class here. Class name is equal to list group item. Inside this li element we have to show the value of item. since we are inside the HTML element that we can retrieve from this variable item, but we are inside the HTML tag, so we have to use this curly brace item. If we are rendering elements like this iteration here, we have to add key element to identify each of the element which is specific to React. So you can add this key attribute. Again, we have to use the JavaScript variable, so we have to use this curly brace, then index. Okay, so this index will have a unique value for each element since it is the index. Back to the app again. Now let's add few tasks. So here we have added 3 to-do tasks into the app successfully. Now when we complete a to-do task, we either have to mark it as done or we have to delete the item. For that, we are going to add a delete button along with the to-do task here. Inside this li item, we can add a button, and let's add few Bootstrap classes: btn, btn-sm, color this button btn outer, danger, and we have to float this in right side, so we can add this class float right. Inside the button, we will have the text delete. When user click on this button, we have to delete the corresponding li element. I will add the on-click event here, on-click. Okay, we have to provide a function to handle this event. Delete to-do task. For this function, we need 2 parameters, default event parameter and the index of the item to delete corresponding item from the list. Okay, now let's call this function inside this click event, this dot delete to do task. Into the function we can pass corresponding parameters event and index. Now inside the function we have to delete the corresponding item with the index from the parameter. Since this array here to do task inside the state is immutable, we can directly delete the item. So we will copy the array like this. Task array is equal to, in order to copy the array we can use this destructive syntax from JavaScript. So this dot state the dot to do list. Now we can delete the corresponding item using the function splice. First of all, we have to provide the index, then number of elements to be deleted. Finally, we can set this array inside the state. So we can do this dot set state function can be called inside the object. We have the array to do list and we just assign the new array here. For event functions like this, it would be better to use the arrow syntax like this. So let's convert this function into an arrow function, otherwise we may have bind problems in React.js applications. And here we have to make one more modification. We just can't simply call functions like this inside the events. We have to make use of the event function like this. So event is the global variable, so we can do this and we have to enclose this inside this function body. And also here we have a typo. Instead of outline we have used outer. Now let me save all of these modifications and back to the app here. In order to test delete operation, let me add one more to do task. Now let's delete this. That's it. So that's it guys. In this React.js beginners tutorial, we have learned to do task basics to get started with React.js development. If you found this tutorial helpful, please thumbs up this video, and for more awesome videos like this, please be subscribed to this channel CodAffection. Please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues so that they can benefit from this. Have a nice day. Bye.